Yeah, I still don't have a quote to go with this movie. It's a pretty good movie, though.
Good movie. I mean, are you gonna keep this shtick going where you drop a quote like 5 seconds into our intro?
I don't think so. I was doing it because I thought it was fun, and also, like, we did a whole month of movies with pretty good quotes to them, so I just kept up with it, but now I'm like, yeah, I think we might have worn out that shtick.
I mean, the score is really good to this movie, so if you want to break out a guitar or your synth and just, play the score of this film, doing the intro, you could do that too.
I mean, this is a pretty good score. I don't know if it's my favorite score from Miyazaki. It's up there.
Yeah.
But, this movie, you've never seen before.
Yeah, this is my pick for November, and we're talking about Princess Mononoke.
Yes, here at the Film Club podcast, where a movie couple sits down and talks about movies. And this month, we're talking about brand new movies we've never seen before. I'm Dean.
I'm Boo.
And we're the Film Club.
You guys can't obviously see what we're doing right now, but Dean had really good spirit fingers going on as he was doing his Welcome to the Film Club. He was so proud.
Look, you got to be animated, like people can tell when you're smiling or not.
Yeah.
Over the phone, like people can tell when I'm doing spirit fingers.
Spirit fingers.
What's that from?
Bring it on.
Okay, because I don't think I've seen that movie in a long time.
Yeah.
But I remember that one shtick in the movie where it's the dude in all black or whatever, and he's teaching the cheerleaders, like, these aren't spirit fingers. These are spirit fingers. I don't even know. I don't think that movie's even good. It has like 5 sequels, and I think they all get cheaper and cheaper as they go along.
It just shocks me how you remember that man from Bring It On.
Yes.
So vividly.
Very. Well, yeah, I do. Yeah, I remember. I could probably like shot for shot that exact scene from memory if I had to.
All right. I mean, the inner workings of Dean's brain.
Oh, I forget my own birthday all the time.
No, you forget your age all the time. And then it's put on to me, well, how old am I? And I have to sit there and think. I'm like, well, I'm at that age where I don't remember my age anymore. Now I gotta keep track of yours. Like,
yeah. But yeah, so we're talking about Princess Mononoke today.
Yeah, and if, we're gonna be animated about an episode, it should be this one.
An animated movie.
Yeah, because we haven't done an animated movie since anime, right?
Yeah, we did, because we usually dedicate a whole month every year to doing just animated films, because you were not an anime person before the podcast, right?
Just Pokemon.
And I finally introduced you to Miyazaki, and now he's like your jam.
He's changed my life, yes.
Good to hear. But Princess Mononoke, this is the one you wanted to watch. Why did you want to pick it out of all, like, the Miyazaki films you've never seen before?
It was the score. I'd listened to something where someone was doing, like, a medley of Miyazaki's scores, and this was on there, and I was like, wow, the music in all of his films are very strong. They're their own characters themselves. And just, the score with this one and seeing a little bit of, like, the landscapes and what the movie's about, it was kind of like, yeah, this is gonna be strong messages that they're putting on if I feel that strongly just listening to music.
That's something I've noticed a lot about movies from Miyazaki is he puts a lot of effort into his musics, into, like, the sound of the film, and also, like, the sound design. Because I knew a guy who did animation, like, professional grade animation, and he told me that 90% of good animation you see is in the sound design more than the visuals, because if something sounds real and sounds like it exists in a physical space, then that's good.
Yeah.
And the Miyazaki's films, I think, across the board have great sound design, and this, I think, is the best sounding one out of the films we've watched on the podcast. I think. But this is also the most different than all the other ones we've watched.
Yeah, I was really surprised, and not in a bad way. It's just surprised watching this because, like, this feels like Miyazaki, but at the same time doesn't feel like Miyazaki.
Yeah, you get, like, the nice landscapes, you get a lot of, like, the very energetic and very soft-looking characters, but this one you also get, like, blood and a little bit of gore and, like...
A little bit of profanity, too. I was like, wow, he said that? I'm like, okay. I'm like, I don't know if that's just...
these were kids' movies.
I'm like, I don't know if it's just because, we're watching the American dubbed version, so I'm like, maybe that's why, a couple of words were changed, but I was just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, well, I know this movie is rated, like, I think is it PG or PG-13?
I think it's PG.
No, I think...
Oh, it's PG-13?
Yeah, it is PG-13.
Wow, okay.
You know, neither here nor there, but... Because I think when people think of Miyazaki, they think, oh, he's the Japanese Disney.
Yeah,
you know, he
Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service, where it's, happy,
very
like,
kid-friendly,
the animals talk.
Yeah, funny animals. You're selling it directly to younger children.
Yeah.
Spirited Away is like, oh, it's like creepy and it's like weirder, but it's still like a kid's fantasy film.
I mean, I still hold that one of the cutest characters in Spirited Away is the little frog and the outfit. I'm like,
you just like little frogs.
Little frogs. I mean, Totoro. I love Totoro.
You want your own Totoro, we know.
I mean, I have one, the one you got me.
Oh yeah, we did that when we went to the Academy Museum for the Miyazaki exhibit.
Yeah, I still have him.
Aww.
I love that Totoro.
Aww, it's adorable.
That sounds like, okay. I'm like, I think I'm gonna love the wolves in these movies, because I have to have an animal that I can just...
attach to for each Miyazaki movie.
Yes.
Well, that's something kind of interesting about this movie is the monster designs in it. I'll call them monster designs, but that's like, the animals, the demons, the gods, whatever, the spirits.
Spoiler, there's a gill man in this movie.
There is a straight up gill man in this movie.
I loved it when I saw it. I was like, yes, gill man! Universal monsters live!
Yes, there's a universal monster in this. But it's interesting when you bring that up because the creatures in this are really weird looking and different than the other creatures we see in something like Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Because in Spirited Away, they're very, like, kind of abstracted and weird. Where these are a lot more grounded, but they're way scarier. Like, the wolves, when they, like, smile and have that, like, teeth thing, just feel really creepy. And I think it's because, like, the mouths are longer than an actual wolf's would be and how, like, it's designed.
Yeah, the snouts are really long, so it kind of looks like a crocodile mouth.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I could see where that'd be creepy, but I kept thinking, like, the first time I saw the wolf coming down the hill, I was like, there's my dog, Mac.
Aww.
I was like, R.I.P., buddy. But it was just like, yeah, I usually have to attach myself to an animal character in these movies, and it was interesting to see the animals versus humans conflict. Yeah,
because that's, like, a huge section of the movie.
Yeah.
I'll give everybody, like, the quick plot synopsis for this.
You have this box, too?
I got them all, baby.
Wow.
So, while protecting his village from a rampaging boar demon, a confident young warrior, Ashitaka, is stricken by a deadly curse. To save his life, he must journey to the forest of the west. Once there, he's embroiled in a fierce campaign that humans were raging on the forest. The ambitious Lady Eboshi and her loyal clan use their guns against the gods of the forest, and a brave young woman, Princess Mononoke, who was raised by a wolf god, stands against them. Ashitaka sees the good in both sides and tries to stem the flood of blood, but this is met by animosity because both sides believe he is supporting the enemy. And that's the gist of the movie.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is this is called Princess Mononoke, right?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't show up till like halfway through the movie.
That was like the other surprising thing to me, apart from this not feeling like the other Miyazaki films. I was like, okay, this is Princess Mononoke, but the movie isn't, about her entirely.
Yeah.
We follow Ashitaka?
Ashitaka, yeah.
We follow him, and he's an interesting character, but I was just like, okay, we're gonna get to her in like maybe 20 minutes. 30 minutes.
I straight up sat there and I was like, okay, so first 10 minutes, that's really important. So she's probably going to show up at like the 10-minute mark, right?
Yeah.
She's the important character that's going to carry us through the rest of the film. No, she's not in the first 10. Maybe the next, she's at the end of Act 1. We'll wait there. End of Act 1. Okay, well, I think we just saw her? Okay, but she's not actually interested. Okay, and then it's like halfway through the movie before she has a dialogue with our lead, Ashitaka. And I found this out. The movie originally was not going to be called Princess Mononoke. It was going to be called The Legend of Ashitaka.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, but I think they changed it to Princess Mononoke because I guess how that kanji works in Japanese sounds weird,
Mm-hmm.
or it doesn't translate well, so they changed it to Princess Mononoke because
Mm-hmm.
it's just an easier kanji translation.
Yeah.
But it's just a very interesting thing about the movie because the movie is titled Princess Mononoke, but she is not the lead of the film, but I feel she's the central thematic piece of the film.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie is talking about humans versus nature, industrialization
Mm-hmm.
versus the environment and all that stuff, and she stands in the middle.
Yeah, because she is human, even though she's raised by wolves, but she doesn't identify herself as a human.
Yeah.
And the animals are kind of like, we're cool with you, but at the same time, we're not because you're really one of them. So she has that internal conflict of, not being really accepted on either side.
Yeah, and then when Ashitaka meets her, he is very much in the realm of, oh, he's cursed and
Mm-hmm.
he is angry about that, and he's trying to find the middle ground between these two warring factions. And I think he's trying to place himself in the realm of Mononoke, but it's just like it's different for him
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like he's forced to be in this position where she was kind of like born into it.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie is very interesting. I think it has a lot of thematic elements to it
Yeah, it does.
because I think I mentioned this before. It reminds me a lot of Lord of the Rings.
And that was the vibe that I got when I was watching this. I was like, is this just me? Or, it kind of feels like I'm waiting to see Frodo appear on one of the hills. And I'm like, oh, Dean must be really loving this right now.
Low key, this movie kind of is working its way up as being a favorite. But I bring that up because, like, Lord of the Rings and this have, like, basically no plot similarities other than being fantasy film.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're in conversation. They both have themes of industrialization versus nature. They both have themes, I feel, of war and its effects on society, of the people, like the trauma of it. I think there's also a little bit of the idea of fear and hatred as like an infectious thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we could see that with, when Ashitaka becomes
cursed.
and it's like, yeah, you could see how this would be an infection that just spreads, and that's kind of what hate is. Once the rumblings kind of start, it's easy to see it move through these villages when it's just, why can't you just learn to coexist with nature?
I mean, a great philosopher once said, "Fear leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering." Quoted the great philosopher Yoda.
Master Yoda, yes.
Yes, indeed. But that's like that. I feel like that's a lot of the thematic things this is dealing with, and those are things that Lord of the Rings dealt with as well. And it feels like this is also Miyazaki's attempt to kind of do what Tolkien did with Lord of the Rings, because um, Tolkien created like the mythology for like Europe and whatever that he felt what wasn't existent. He wanted a deeper kind of lore mythology to it, like Beowulf and all that.
Yeah.
So he created it, and that's what Lord of the Rings was. And Princess Mononoke feels like Miyazaki is creating a mythology of Japan, of an era that he wants to realize, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, and you're saying that this reminds you of Lord of the Rings. I don't know how often you play Legend of Zelda.
The last time I played Legend of Zelda was Majora's Mask on the 64.
Okay, so in 2017, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild came out, and a lot of people have speculated since then that this movie was the major inspiration for this game. And so it's interesting to see, maybe Miyazaki was inspired by Tolkien, and now, other films and video games have taken inspiration from this film.
I mean, I feel like that's a lot of the discourse around Miyazaki, because I think a lot of the things he creates influences a lot of things that come after it.
I even, when I was watching it and watching The Wolves especially, I was even thinking, were the filmmakers of like the Twilight movies inspired by this? Because the werewolves, the sequences where they talk and how they're kind of choreographed into scenes, kind of reminded me of this movie, and I was kind of like, I wonder if they took inspiration and, how we could make these creatures talk and it looks kind of normal. It doesn't look, like their mouths need to be moving a lot.
It doesn't look like Flappy Mouth.
Yeah, so I was like, kind of like, I'm like, how much has this movie inspired other artists?
Oh, I would imagine a lot. Miyazaki's one of those filmmakers that I don't think anyone has any big gripes against.
No.
Like, the only gripe I have really with this film in particular, and it's not even like a gripe where it's like, oh, it's bad. It's like, oh no, it's just kind of weird. Because how the characters are designed, right? Because a lot of his character design in this movie, the human characters, are very, like, soft. They don't have a lot of hard lines or hard edges. Mm-hmm. They're very clean.
Yeah.
And I felt like the story he's trying to tell in this, we're gonna get, like, a rougher looking design. Like, the characters were gonna have a little bit more harder edge. They're gonna look a little bit dirtier. Because it feels like this is trying to be more of a darker story. Especially of the time and the setting he's dealing with.
Well, I mean, especially when one of the villages that we see is called, what, Iron City? Or
yeah, Iron Island or something like that. And also
or Iron Town.
I think it's Iron Town.
Because I remember when I watched that, I thought of Pokemon. And I was like, Ash from Pallet Town. And I was like, this is awesome.
Oh, y'all gotta love Pokemon. But that's the thing, because with this movie, I feel like it's trying to be darker in tone. I mean, what is it? The opening of the movie, we see people, like, getting decapitated, arms getting chopped off.
Yeah.
Like, there's blood. Well, there's not, like, blood, but there's dead people. Like, people die in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like, little pools of blood, and, I mean, that just shows how blind I went into this, because I was like, I'm not going to watch any trailers, I'm not going to look up any of my information before, so, I mean, yeah, finding out right now that it's a PG-13 movie, that would have helped when I first saw it, and I'm like, oh, okay, he becomes infected with, the curse, and then it's just, I don't want to hurt you, and he shoots the arrow and, shoots the guy's arms off, and I was just like, what? This is a Miyazaki movie? Like, whoa, okay, this is pretty metal, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, like, our main character, objectively, he's a courageous warrior. He is killing people, like, a lot.
I mean, people are yards away, and, he sends that bow flying, or that arrow flying, and then, guy's head goes flying off. Just like, what?
Yeah.
This is, like, so cool.
Don't get me wrong, like, I'm not one of these sticklers that's like, animation is just for kids. Like, no. I like anime or stuff that's more, like, adult-oriented. Like Perfect Blue. Perfect Blue, great movie. Paprika, I think we also did. Like, those movies aren't, like, aimed at children at all. No. And I think they're great. It's just a thing where maybe that's something interesting, where I think that's a common issue. A lot of people look at Miyazaki as a kid filmmaker. Like, he makes movies for children. But I don't think that's how he views it at all. Because I saw in a little bit of research that he based a lot of the visual stylings and a lot of the storytelling on John Ford films. Mm-hmm. And I think he watched Stagecoach to get ready for this, and, like, John Ford made a lot of westerns, and he was a very, like, by-the-book, old school filmmaker. And I feel like Miyazaki is just a by-the-books, old-school filmmaker, and his movies just get placed into children's categories a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you could watch any of his films, and, I mean, there's, really strong messages that are being passed, and, a child might not, put two and two together, but eventually, you watch it as you grow older, and you're like, wow, this is what this has been telling me the whole time? Like, I had no idea.
Oh, there was a video I watched, and it was talking about, kids shows you don't realize were way more adult than they actually were. One of them was, like, Rocko's Modern Life.
Yeah.
And I remember, I love that show as a kid. And then I, like, watched a episode, I'm like, this was made for, like, adults.
Yeah.
That, or, like, Courage the Cowardly Dog, which is just, it's nightmare fuel. And it's like, I love Courage the Cowardly Dog. Was there any, like, movies or cartoons or whatever where you went back to them and you're like, this was not made for kids? Why was I allowed to watch this?
I mean, I watched those, Rugrats. You'd catch, adult jokes are kind of like, oh wow, that was left in there, like, okay, pretty cool. Even in Disney movies, there's adult jokes in there where it's like, oh, that's what that meant. Yeah. That's why the adults were laughing and none of us were like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that's That's like the thing. I feel like a lot of movies like this, when you're a kid, you see it one way, and then you go back as an adult, and it's like a whole different movie.
Yeah.
And I feel that's probably a lot of people's experience would be for something like My Neighbor Totoro,
Mm-hmm.
or something like a Keys Delivery Service, where you watch it once and you're like, oh, this is like a really basic, easy to digest like children's movie, and you go back and you're like, no, like Kiki's Delivery Service is about like growing up and like acceptance and kind of like figuring out your way in life, and they're like deeper movies than that.
Yeah.
What else do we want to get on this movie?
Well, I mean, speaking about, how this movie's kind of different from the other Miyazaki films, this was obtained by Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, he shall not be named.
Yes, that asshole. Obtained it, and, there was a lot of struggles. He wanted to cut down the movie because he thought that American audiences wouldn't be able to sit through a 2-hour animated film, and it's just like, no, you got to give us more credit.
Well, that's something crazy. Was the thing with like Walt Disney when he made Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Everyone was like, no one will sit through a feature-length animated film, and that was a crazy thing for decades and decades and decades, where most animated films in America were only like 88 minutes, 90-ish minutes. I don't think there was any 2-hour animated films until like the 80s or 90s, I think.
Yeah, it was always this really tight, movie, so it's like, okay, I can't get too bored, but I could sit here for a while and watch this film. So, when basically Voldemort got the rights to this movie, he wanted to cut it down significantly, and Miyazaki was like, absolutely not, no, no, no. And then even one of the Studio Ghibli producers, Toshio Suzuki, sent Voldemort a katana sword with, engraved on it, no cuts. And it's just like...
That's a pretty baller move. Could you imagine you walk into your office, you're just like, I'm dealing with these guys, and they just, like, I want to trim the movie down so we can get more asses in the seats. And you walk in and there's just a katana laid across your desk, and you're like, oh, they're gonna kill me. That's how this is gonna work. All right, I guess no cuts. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, watch more of Miyazaki's films and kind of understand.
He knows what he's doing.
Exactly. So it's like, you really want to come in and tell him, no, we should cut this out because, audience here, they won't appreciate it or they won't understand. It's like, no, listen to the filmmaker. Just like, when they were doing the stuff for this film to, distribute to the American audiences, he wanted to hire on Tarantino to write the script.
Wait, like the dialogue?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, okay, so this is 97, so this would have been around when Tarantino
This was 95.
Oh, when he was writing the script. Oh, okay, so this is like, what, right after Jackie Brown?
I think so.
Or it's either after Jackie Brown or after Pulp Fiction. But... Okay, but that's a whole can of worms right there that we can get into, because like I kind of get the idea out of Voldemort here. Get devil his due. There is a lot of empty imagery in the film that feels like it's taking a lot of time. It's very slower paced, and I can kind of see if he's like, well, we're trying to market this to kids. I can kind of see that. But I feel like if you trim the story down, or a lot of like the empty imagery out of it, then you're kind of losing a lot of the atmosphere. Because I feel like the film is dealing a lot in an atmosphere and a mythos here. But also I think Tarantino would have done a horrible job writing a script for this.
Exactly, and that was Tarantino. I mean, he probably didn't think it'd be horrible, but he knew that it wouldn't work. But he was the one that actually suggested Neil Gaiman take on the writing for this film. And that's who ultimately is the writer.
That's a way better fit.
Neil Gaiman wrote Coraline, and it's like, yeah, he's able to kind of dip into these worlds where you feel like, it's not entirely just the real world. There's fantasy fused in.
Well, yeah, and also, like, Tarantino, up to that point, had professionally written, like, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, so very, genre-based crime thrillers or action movies or comedies or whatever. He's not dealing in fantasy or even like mythologizing anything. Neil Gaiman, like, he did like American Gods, Sandman. dealing in this realm is a lot more his speed.
Yeah.
Man, like that's really interesting. I didn't realize Neil Gaiman wrote the English verses for this. That's really cool.
And it just, goes to show that, this movie is very strong on its own, and then you see, oh, okay, the different people that have had their hands tied into this movie, and it's kind of like, yeah, you guys are the reason why it works, but at the end of the day, it still feels like a Miyazaki film.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing about a lot of Miyazaki films, is that they do, like the character design I mentioned, they all have this kind of uniformity in certain things. He really likes, like I was saying, the empty imagery. Like, they're not empty in terms of, like, content or visual scope. It's like, there's not, like, characters or something. These are just long shots developing an atmosphere or a mood or a tone. Like, there's a lot of that in this movie, and that's him taking cues from John Ford, you know? How do we make people feel like the epicness of what's going on? Show Monument Valley in all its glory. That's how you show the epicness of the story placing down. And he does that
and then
with
you have
these vistas
an
mountains.
Epic score beneath it. So you feel like you're standing out there in the middle of nowhere, and it's okay. You're not scared. You're just embracing that moment of, wow, this world is so vast.
There's just the universe around you, and you exist in it.
And the fact that it's untouched. Because, I mean, that's what people do. We build. And it's just getting to see these pieces of Earth that haven't been touched. It's just the way that, Earth created it. It's like, wow, you don't really get to see that every day.
Well, that kind of brings me to something. Because in the movie, it's a story between the humans of, like, Irontown versus, like, the nature and the nature spirits. And it's trying, I think the movie wants the audience to be like, the nature spirits, they're good guys. And the humans, well, they also have a point. They're also good guys. And, they're trying to, like, come to terms and live in, like, harmony. And I was like, I never got that. I felt objectively the humans were villains across the board. And I was like, yeah, no, only the nature spirits are good. Like, I think the entire human colony were all, like, bad guys.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you there, but then I disagree because I can see where there's both hostility on either side, where it's, the animals are frustrated because you're taking over their home, you're killing them. And at the same time, we're humans, we need, food to survive, and, we build stronger because there's other enemies out there, human enemies that are coming after us, and they're destroying our towns and our villages. So it's like, I could see the struggle on either side. I mean, you had some animals that were just ready to kill because they were, pissed off about situations, and it's
the gorillas that are the gorillas that are just kind of show up out of nowhere.
I mean, that was scary. You just see the red eyes. It was just like, holy crap, what's that now?
I thought that was some beautiful imagery of them. They're just these silhouetted, like, black figures with red eyes, and they're humanoid looking, and it's like, that they're like the primal, like aggression, evil of humanity just displayed on this. And it's like, and they're like ostracized even outside of, like, the nature realm because you're like humans, but you're not humans.
Yeah.
And they exist off in a different, like, realm. And it's a really fascinating thing. The movie makes the world feel way bigger than what we're seeing.
Just like San. She's, human, but not human.
Yeah.
And it's like, you fight good and you act like an animal, but can't really take you 100% serious.
Exactly. Like, you walk around, you got, like, the weird earrings, the necklace thing. I don't get this.
I mean, you get to ride around on wolves. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, how big are these wolves? I'm like, if I lived in Irontown, I'd be like, yo, them wolves there, them's good eating, boys. Like, that's like a 400-pound wolf right there.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna eat wolf.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You say that now, but get some hot sauce on there, slow roast it, we can get it on the smoker.
No. I love wolves. I think they're beautiful. I mean, watching them in the gray with Liam Neeson scared the crap out of me.
The CGI wolves?
Yeah, that movie just...
The gray.
The gray, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Aren't they in Frozen, too?
In what? Like the animated Frozen movie? Or are you talking about Frozen, the real Frozen, where it's the one on
where they're stuck on the ski lift.
Yeah, that's what's at the down there. That's why they can't, like, jump down, because there's wolves around them. That's a horror movie that I think is way better than people give it credit for, but it is kind of a cheap B movie.
I've only seen it one time, and I was like, I can never watch this again. This scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, mini review for the movie Frozen. It's like a 2010-ish era horror film about these people who go up on a ski lift kind of late at night, and the ski operator doesn't realize they're on there and turns off the ski lift, and they get trapped like 30-40 feet in the air.
Yeah, because I know one of the characters, spoiler, he tries to jump down and he ends up breaking both of his legs. So they keep thinking, oh, it's snow, it's padded, we could just jump down. And it's like, no, you're way too high to jump down.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Then the wolves come, and it's this whole like thing of like survival because they're trapped up in the ski lift, and it's like in the middle of like Aspen, so it's gonna be -40, and they're up there in like basic ski gear. So they're like, they can't get out. And it's a pretty decent horror thriller.
And who knows what time the ski lift closed. And, realistically, you're not going to survive sitting there all night through morning.
Oh, I think that was a thing that they said was it got, it was like going to be turned off for the weekend. And they were like the last ones on like a Friday night.
Yeah.
So it wasn't going to be like Monday or something.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, this is like the last run. Well, let's take it. Let's, do the last run before they close for the weekend, and then it gets shut off by somebody. I don't know. It's been a long time since I watched it, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I could do this ever again. This just,
Are wolves one of those creatures you're just like, if they show up in a movie, I'm immediately respectful of that bullshit?
Yes. They're beautiful animals, but I was like, oh my god, they could tear me apart with no issue, not even trying. I'm like, yeah, we're good.
I like how in this movie they try and chew off Ashitaka's head. Like the moment Ashitaka like falls down, the wolves just pounce and just start like biting on his head like it's a chew toy.
After he's been shot and saves San, and they're like, you know what? Let me just, and that's what it looked like. I was like, oh my god, how sad, but kind of funny at the same time.
Yeah, and it's a thing where I'm like, that I know that's not meant to be funny. Like, that's a thing about the movie where, like, don't get me wrong, Miyazaki, he's a great visual storyteller, great filmmaker, but it's a thing where, man, I never felt like the humans were in, like, the place, like, a righteous place of their actions, and there's some things where I'm like, that's just unintentionally kind of funny.
Well, like, when they, spoiler, they cut off the mother wolf's head. I can't think of what the mother wolf, her name was.
She was voiced by, like, Gillian Anderson.
Okay.
Also, Keith David's in this movie.
Yeah, I thought that would be the one thing to really draw you in.
Every time I see Keith David in something, even if it's a bad movie, he's great in it. There's this shitty internet horror film called Chain Letter. It has Brad Dourif and Keith David in it, which people would be like, oh, those guys make every movie they're in excellent. Yeah. And they're excellent in the movie. But they're, like, 2-scene supporting characters. The whole movie is, like, the shittiest, like, 2000-era slasher you could possibly imagine. Because it's, like, the premise is, you get sent a chain letter, and if you don't send the chain letter on, then somebody kills you. And then they send the chain letter on. And that's, like, the whole point of it is, the slasher person is chasing down whoever, like, doesn't send the chain letter on, and it's like, okay, that's interesting, but the actual movie is really, really bad.
But favorite Keith David performance?
Of all time?
Of all time.
Goddamn. Okay, him as Childs on The Thing is classic. Him in They Live is great. Him as the president on Rick and Morty is always funny. God, he's in a lot of things now I think about it. Well, do you have a favorite?
I think They Live.
That's a very good one. That's a very strong pick.
Mostly because him and Nada are just fighting the entire time. He's a great actor.
He's a very good actor. He's Juilliard trained. He's a classically, like, trained actor. He's very good in his work.
So, are we going to Season Screaming to meet him?
I'd really like to.
Because he's gonna be there.
Yeah, I can get my They Live poster sign. It'll be fun. But, Princess Mononoke.
Yes. So, we have, okay, we were talking about funny things. So, Moro, I thought it was funny because whoever the leader of Irontown is, I can't think of her name. Oh,
the leader of Irontown is, it's not Ashitaka. God damn it! There's so many people in this movie where I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce your name because I'm a dumb American.
But yeah, the lady with the red lipstick. She foreshadows early in the movie that, even if you were to cut the head off of one of the wolves, they could still bite you. And Moro's been like, oh, I want to bite that woman's head off.
Lady Eboshi, I found it.
There
It's
you go,
Lady
Lady Eboshi. And then right at the end, she gets her arm bitten off as Moro's wolf head is just flying through the forest after being beheaded.
I thought she was gonna die, and that was gonna be the thing that changed Irontown into being a more peaceful place, because she was like building guns and like the industrialization and warmongering, and her living, I feel like she objectively was like Lex Luthor of this story. Why does she get a free pass?
And the irony too that she wanted to cut off what is his name?
Ashitaka.
She wanted to cut off
Ashitaka. I'm not the only one that's hard to remember names.
No, that's like my curse. I can never remember somebody's name, even after hi, my name is. It's completely gone.
My name is.
What?
My name is.
Who?
My name is.
Slim Shady.
No, it's Dean. But
okay.
Let's keep going.
Sorry. But yeah. So I thought the irony of Lady whatever losing her arm after she wanted to cut off Ashitaka's. But when he's telling her, I've got the curse and it's in this one arm, and that was her solution. We'll just cut it off. And ultimately she loses hers, and then she's kind of like, I think we need to do things kind of differently now.
The curse is also a weird thing, right? Because I feel like it's kind of undefined what it's actually doing.
And it's creepy because it looks like worms.
Yeah. But the thing is the curse that affects Ashitaka, because it's like making his arm like this weird purpley thing, and it's like, oh, it'll corrupt and destroy your soul, and then it'll destroy your body. But I feel like it just gives him superpowers. Like for like the majority of the movie, it gives him superpowers, and we don't even see real ill effects of it until.
Or is that just the strength of his character, that it doesn't change his demeanor and his actions? It's just that's how strong he is, that he could kind of put those evil thoughts at bay and kind of just use the strength aspect of it.
I maybe, because
even when we meet the rest of the boars, and the blind boar is talking about the boar that has been killed and was infected, that they didn't know that they had evil amongst their group. So it's like an animal was an evil animal, and so I think that's why when he became cursed, it was just this thing where he kind of embraced it. And Ashitaka is a good person, and it was just kind of like, okay, I'm stuck with this curse, but I'm not going to let it define me.
I like how you say that, and we see him kill like 15 dudes on his way to go get the curse lifted.
But he says, I don't want to kill you. It's just kind of like this thing.
I don't want to kill you, but I'm going to like style on you bitches, because I know I can do it. No problem.
Especially when you're seeing these soldiers go after the people in the village, and they're fleeing from them, and it's like, the ones that are kind of, slowing down, or they're dropping things. It's like, okay, let's pounce on you and let's beat the crap out of you until we kill you. That
felt like a Seventh Samurai shout out, because Seventh Samurai is like, that's basically the thing, is bandits are invading this like poor village, and I was like, oh, is this what the story's gonna be? Is this like Seventh Samurai but like fantasy? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's not actually what's going on. It's just kind of going on. But that's the thing. The curse seems so undefined to me, because I don't really understand how it actually works.
Yeah, it's never explained, and with you saying that originally they wanted to be the legend of Ashitaka.
Yeah,
it makes sense, because it's like, okay, we're learning about the character, we're not learning about this curse that's impacted his life. So I'm like, okay, I mean, it'd be interesting to get some lore on the curse, what happens.
Well, I just want to know, because it feels like the curse isn't actually because in screenplay terms, like, what the story is doing is, oh, this curse is a ticking time bomb. Yeah. Eventually it's going to explode, and it's going to, like, kill somebody or change the story, or if the time bomb goes off, then the movie's over. But it never feels like the curse is ever put forward, in Ashitaka's case, as being a real threat to him. It feels like it turns into like a plot convenient way for him to have superpowers, like opening up the
gate.
the barred gate, him being able to knock Lady Eboshi out unconscious and being able to like just non-react to Princess Mononoke as she wails on him. Like
he gets shot, he gets stabbed.
Yeah, it makes him more durable and all these other. It makes him have superpowers, and it doesn't feel like, oh, that's something that Miyazaki or Gaiman or the writers just didn't put effort into exploring. It felt like the curse is the MacGuffin. The curse is only here to push forward the story to get us to Irontown, to get us
to the forest,
to Mononoke, to the spirit. And it's just a thing where I wish it was a little bit more than a MacGuffin, because it's so central. But it's one of those things where it's like when you're critiquing like a Van Gogh painting, and you're like, it's still a great painting. Yeah, it's still pretty. It's just, God damn it, could you just like use a little more yellow on this side? Kind of. I know,
but I think it works. I mean, it just shows the strength of his character, where it's just, he's dealing with so many different problems, and then, he falls in love with Princess Mononoke, and she's just, I hate humans, but, I have feelings for you, and it's just, she keeps pushing him away, and you think, okay, he's been injured, he's, fighting, and you think, maybe this being rejected would be the thing that gets this part of the curse to change his character, and he's still very, no, I'm gonna be there for you, It might take you a while to realize that I'm good, I'm not gonna hurt you, but I'm still gonna be there for you.
I really liked how the relationship developed.
Yeah, and it's not, your Disney happily ever after ending, and that's what I was waiting to see. I'm like, how are we gonna end this? And then we do, and I'm like, okay, I'm happy with that. I'm like, I didn't feel like, no, I need the two of them together forever. I'm like, no, it works.
Yeah, and I think that actually is kind of the most interesting thing about that relationship is, at first, like, he's smitten over Princess Mononoke. Love at first sight. Princess Mononoke is like, no, like, you're human, you're weird. And then as the story goes on, he proves himself to her, and I think at the end he's in love with her, and I don't even know if Mononoke loves him. I think she respects him. And I think she views him as like an ally and a friend, but I don't know if she loves him.
No, I think she loves him.
But I like that ambiguity looking at it, where I really want them to be in love, but when they like part ways, and it's a thing where, man, I don't know about how this relationship is at this state, but I'm very happy at where it is, wherever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to pick up that, or at least in my opinion, that she loves him or is in love with him, but it's just that internal conflict of, people have done me wrong, and it's like, I feel safer with animals who have been loyal to me. Because, I mean, that's one of the things we learn about Princess Mononoke, is that her parents abandoned her, and that's why she's been raised by the wolves and, kind of hates humans because, starting out, they kind of did her wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's kind of hard to overcome, when you've been scarred and damaged in that way. So it'd be interesting to see where their characters would lie, because Ashitaka seems like the kind of person where, yeah, I will come back and I will visit you and I will,
keep my word.
I will keep my word and be there for you.
It's a really interesting thing, the relationships in the movie, because even Lady Eboshi, she has a very interesting relationship with the Gonza, who's like the head of the guard or whatever, and she has a very interesting relationship with like the villagers and things and people around her, because the village, I think, is a very interesting way that society is set up, because it's like the cast of misfits. Like, the women are openly being like, hey, at least we're not in a brothel, and it's like implied most of the people in the village were like either criminals or poor or whatever, and this was kind of like, the last vestige they could go to.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how those relationships build. It's like the humans created their own family, whereas the nature seems very tribal. Like, the wolves hang out with the wolves, the boars hang out with the boars, the gorillas in the mist hang out with the gorillas in the mist.
Yeah.
And Mononoke found this family in the wolves, but that seems like such an alien thing to them.
Mhm.
And it's just interesting to see how their relationships differ, from like the human side and the spirit side of the animal side.
They're keeping it very Animal Kingdom style, where it's, all these classes of animals stay amongst themselves. And it's Moro, who is the one that was kind of like, yeah, I'm the goddess of the wolves. And yeah, I found this human, but I kind of like her, so I kept her on, even though my better judgment was to eat her. I mean, I think that was one of my favorite quotes of the movie, when she goes, "My poor ugly daughter," but she is beautiful.
Oh,
I was just
God.
like, that's hilarious.
Oh yeah, that's another thing where I'm like, I love the fact that the movie is making a point that the nature and the fantasy or whatever is so alien to
Mhm.
like human understanding, and it's like I like that, and yeah, I really like the fantasy. This is a really well built fantasy story. And speaking of Mononoke and the Wolves or whatever, it's like, oh, he's doing like Romulus and Remus, like
Mhm.
the Roman Empire, raised by wolves, like that myth.
Yeah.
And he's combining it in with like the John Ford mythology of like the Old West, and he does it here where it's like the mythology of like old Japan and the samurai
Mhm.
and the villages, all that stuff. And he's injecting all these like Tolkienistic ideas of building a fantasy, building a mythology, using the folklore of your world to create a unifying mythological ideal of Japan in his works. And I'm like, this is a really interesting movie, and I think it's a really good movie. I think this is a very deep movie that this might be my favorite Miyazaki movie.
Really?
On the lowest of keys, this might be my favorite Miyazaki movie.
Is it only because it resembles Lord of the Rings?
A little bit, but also
So
like,
biased.
oh, very. But also, it's a like, I really like Spirited Away, but watching this, I'm feeling like this is way more up my alley than Spirited Away. Like, I liked Spirited Away. I love this. This is like right up my alley.
Wow, that's rare. We don't hear an "I love this" from Dean.
Oh yeah, I'm such a cynical bastard.
So cynical.
But yeah, do you have anything else you want to bring on this movie?
No, I mean, all the animals were really cool. The forest spirits, which I ended up loving.
The weird like thing of stars in the night.
I'm just trying to like describe what the forest spirits would be, because they kind of reminded me of like babies or cherubs.
Oh, the little like
the little guys, yeah.
they're like the little elf things with like the heads with like the 3 dots on them,
Mm-hmm.
and they make a ticking noise.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, the first time I had seen them, obviously I've seen them like on merchandise and other, advertisements. But when we went to the Academy Museum, and there was one room really dark, and they had like painted trees, and they would appear, just kind of like in the movie, they just kind of randomly appear. And I was like, okay, I'm like, oh, I'll see what they're about when I finally watch the movie. And we see them, and I'm like, okay, they're kind of cool. And then you have Ashitaka running up the hill as he's carrying the soldier on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see some of the forest spirits. They start to carry each other and run up the hill beside him. And I'm like, okay, you guys aren't just only cute. You guys are funny. And you're racing them up the hill. I was like, I really love them.
Yeah. They also feel like an addition specifically for a younger audience, which is interesting.
And I mean, that's in a lot of lore where, there's these forest spirits or entities that are there to protect or
the
guide.
sprites, the pixies, the elves, the gnomes, yeah.
So I was kind of like, okay, that's kind of cool. But I also really liked Yakul.
Oh, yeah.
Ashitaka's
elk?
A red elk.
Yeah. I thought that's an interesting thing, because I was watching the movie, I'm like, is that a fantasy creature? Is that some sort of weird fantastical beast? And then I was like, no,
that's an
no,
elk.
Dean, it's a fucking elk.
Well, I mean,
you ignorant fool.
I thought it was a reindeer at first, but I was like, well, I know it's of animal, genus. You're over here. What fantastical thing is this thing? And it's like, it's a red elk.
I played too much D&D. I see a thing with horns, and I'm like, is that a unicorn? Is that what fantasy bullshit is this? Let me go grab my lore books. But yeah, I thought that was awesome, and also it had a never-ending story feel to it, where it's like, no, Atreyu, no, fucking the swamp of sadness. But with this, it's like, the elk has a character, and it like is unabashedly loves Ashitaka, and Ashitaka unabashedly loves his elk.
Especially since, he's cursed and basically he's exiled from his village, and we see that he leaves behind a sister. And, he takes his elk with him, and it's kind of like, this is his only family. And it's cool to see that the elk feels the same way about him. I mean, let alone when Mononoke is trying to save Ashitaka, and she releases Yakul from the restraints that he has on him. And she's like, you can go and you could be free now. And we see the next morning where she's like, he didn't leave you. He stayed here the whole night. He watched you. And it's that whole kind of pet and human bond where it's just...
Together forever.
Together forever, but more, that's not so much a pet. It's more your family.
And I think that's an interesting thing about that. Again, the movie has a lot of, like, relationships that I think are interesting and how it builds it. But the relationship between Yakul and Ashitaka, that feels something that's just so, like normal and human.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that Yakul never talks.
No.
Because all the other animals talk,
mm-hmm.
and they try to talk to him, and he just... And the animal doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh no, because this isn't a fantasy thing.
Mm-mm.
Like, the relationship between, like Yakul and Ashitaka, that's not a fantastical thing. That's like a bond people garner with, their
mm-hmm.
pets, their animals, their friends. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's like an unspoken thing. And I was like, oh, that's like really smart filmmaking. I understand this relationship,
mm-hmm.
all visually, really good work. But yeah.
But I think before we finish the episode, we have to talk about Gilman.
Yes,
because
you can talk about the Gilman cameo.
Because, I mean, fuck yeah, Gilman. He's so cool. He's the forest god. And I guess he, like, during the day is, like, this, like, larger-than-life elk.
Yeah, he's, like, this weird elk, bird, owl, goat hybrid thing. He has all the creatures of the forest
mm-hmm.
as one entity.
Yeah.
But at night...
turns into the Gilman, and he's like hundreds of feet tall.
It doesn't even look like the Gilman. He looks like a ethereal being of starlight.
He could be the Gil cousin.
He could be a Gil cousin. I'll give you that. But yeah, it's this really cool effect, and I think they do it in CGI in the production of the film to make it look more alien and more different and more unique. But I really do like that design in this movie. Because that's what I would think of if I was like, oh, imagine a god. I'm like, that's a fucking god.
Well, this movie is the last major animated motion picture to be filmed on plastic animation cells, so I don't think there's CGI in this.
Are you sure? I think there is a little bit in it, but it's not like a thing where they used CGI throughout the entire film. It's not like a Pixar movie. But I thought they used it to, like, implement certain characters or like meld some shots together.
I don't know, because I know Miyazaki's all about, hand drawing things, which he did for this movie. He corrected and redrew 80,000 film animation cells for this movie.
Okay.
Out of 144,000. So...
Oh, I got it here. So only 10% of the film has any computer animation done to it.
Interesting.
But the rest of it is all traditional cell animation. So I'd be kind of interested to watch the movie again and see if you can pick out where the computer comes in.
Yeah.
And see if because that was a big problem for early computer stuff
mm-hmm.
in animation where it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
in a lot
this
of stuff.
one, it's like, I wouldn't have thought, because I know that's his deal where he likes it to be very traditional.
So that's also why this movie costs so much goddamn money.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't look for it because I don't expect it. And, if that is part of that scene, it's very flawless where it's just, you feel like this creature's alive and just kind of walking through the forest.
Man, this is a really good movie.
It was. I'm happy I finally got to watch it. It's only taken me like a year and a half to watch it.
But your final thoughts, final wrap up?
2 thumbs up. I'm definitely gonna have to watch it again and see what else I can pick up from this that I missed in the first watching. But yeah, highly recommend. What about you?
Two big thumbs up. Probably my favorite Miyazaki film. I think the movie does have elements of it that might be a little weird, but I think it just adds to the charm of the movie. Does the story get a little awkward in places? Yeah, but again, it just adds to the charm of the movie. I really like the movie. I think it's actually really good.
And Dean's smiling so hard right now.
It was so nice.
He's like, I'm gonna watch Lord of the Rings right after this.
Yeah, damn right. But that's like, I really like this. It's like, yeah, no, this is just a nice movie. It's just fun. Yeah. So that was Princess Mononoke. Like 4 thumbs up.
Yes.
But next,
I love you, cool.
We know you love your cool. But next week, it is my turn to implement a new film in November.
I was gonna say, don't ask me. I don't know what this is.
Yes, well, I have the box with me.
He actually has the box!
Yes, because I bought this film, I would say, 5 years ago.
Is that why it looks so dusty?
Yes. I bought this film 5 years ago because I was trying to complete a filmmaker's filmography. I was going to watch through all their movies. And I watched through most of them. But this disc, for some reason, I never got around to watching it. It just sat on my shelf, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to watch it. Because if I watch it, then I complete the filmography. And I always want to be able to go back and be like, there's one I didn't see. But I think it's time. And that is going to be Stanley Kubrick's The Killing. This movie came out in 1956. It's one of his very, very first movies. I think this might be his second or third movie. And I'm very excited about this one. This predates Path of Glory, which is considered the first Kubrick masterpiece. Yeah. But yeah, I'm very excited. Crime movie, old school noir, Kubrick classic. I'm in.
I'm excited too, because I've never even heard of this movie, so I don't know what to expect.
I'm excited for it, but if they wanted to...
It has noir, so you got me hooked.
Oh, also, there's a Criterion version of this, and I'm holding an old, MGM bargain bin version.
We'll take it. But if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yep, you can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel, check out our videos of this podcast. We upload at least one video every week. And we are going to try and release some more content on there eventually. But if you wanted to check us out on social media to see when that happens, you can go to
our Instagram, at the Film Club Podcast, where we post upcoming episodes, trivia, our adventures, and a ton of other things.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.